We may be getting a new Fallout game sooner rather than later. PlayStation is blocking certain games from appearing on Xbox Game Pass. There's a lot here to talk about, so let's get into it. What is going on, everybody? This is Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. Hope everybody is having a great day. If you guys can do me a huge favor, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. We're on the road to 90K, and then hopefully 100,000 subscribers. And I gotta thank each and every one of you for that. And make sure you check out the Patreon in the description below. Thank you guys so much. So yesterday we talked about Discord voice chat being super easily accessible now on the Xbox console, and how Microsoft is making changes to the Xbox DVR experience, even though the DVR itself looks like it hasn't been improved just yet. The viewing experience has been, so maybe the fixes for the DVR will come in the future. So enough about the updates and the improvements. We do have some other bit of news that happened recently this week. And yes, unfortunately, we will be talking a little bit about the CMA because everybody seems to be completely over it at this point, even though the CMA is now asking for the public's input. So, man, I really feel for the person that is going to be taking those emails from Xbox is the best or PlayStation is number one. Because, you know, there's definitely going to be people, definitely going to be gamers out there on both sides that are going to send some sternly worded emails about why the deal should go through or why the deal should be blocked, because even though Xbox has no games and is in last place, as PlayStation fans love to tell us every single day on social media, they also have that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality, where then they would go to say, but you can't have Activision Blizzard because you'd be a monopoly and too strong and PlayStation would struggle to compete. You know, it's a whole bunch of nonsense, and I feel for the person who's going to have to read through all that fanboy drivel. But first, I wanted to talk about Obsidian. As some of you probably know by now, you might have seen the leaked image of Avowed that popped online on social media the last couple days. It is a real image. I've seen it myself, although the build is quite an old one, and my expectations for Avowed are pretty high. After playing through all of Grounded, beat it last night, 50 hours, had no expectations for that game, and I ended up really enjoying it. Obsidian seems to be just one of those developers that knows what they're doing, very workmanlike. It is a studio that you can count on, and probably is one of the top 5 studios under Xbox Game Studios. And I'm quite excited as a fan of the Elder Scrolls series to see Obsidian's take on Elder Scrolls. I think it would be really cool. Can't wait to find out more about Avowed. When is the first gameplay trailer we're gonna see, and when can we expect the game to come out? Will it be the end of 2023 or early 2024? But this video is not about Avowed, even though I'm really excited for it, and I know a lot of you are. This video is about Fallout made by Obsidian. And when the Fallout 25th anniversary happened, Obsidian kind of threw a cold bucket of water on the idea of them working on Fallout, and they said that their plate's too full and they just don't have time. And everybody's like, all right, that makes sense. You are working on Pentiment and Grounded and Outer Worlds 2 and Avowed. Makes sense. But people really do want a new Fallout, whether it's Fallout 5 or Fallout New Vegas 2, because it doesn't really seem like we're going to get a new Fallout from Bethesda until something like 2032. However, there is a new interview from the studio head over Obsidian that basically has reignited the flames, and maybe we will see that Fallout game by Obsidian. So, DualShockers interview goes on to say, when asked about whether Obsidian would welcome the opportunity to work on a new Fallout game, Fergus responded assertively, quote, "Of course. If we ever got the opportunity to make another Fallout game, we'd make it. There's not even a question of whether or not we would do it. It's just, quote, will the opportunity arise? I hung around at Interplay for probably an extra year because I wanted to work on Fallout more. I love Fallout. Obsidian has just released a survival game grounded from early access, has a medieval tapestry-themed RPG adventure out next month, and is also working on Outer Worlds sequel and closely guarded first-person RPG Avowed. The studio is extremely busy, but once the current schedule clears up, then Fergus said it will look at what it can do next. Quote, "At some point, we'll start looking into what those next games are going to be, and I would be surprised if Fallout is not on that list. If we were to do Fallout, it has to tie in with what Bethesda is doing with Fallout and a lot of other things, but I would always personally say my hope is that before I ride off into the sunset, I'd love to make another Fallout game." I mean, there you have it, straight from the studio director's mouth. I mean, he kind of sorts of says that they really do want to work on a Fallout game, but they're just busy right now. So I do have to wonder, once Avowed ships and they get out any planned DLC, if there's any DLC at all, if that team would then want to work on something like a Fallout New Vegas 2, because a Fallout 5 from Bethesda is going to be a bit, and I'm sure Xbox would love to take advantage of every single huge Bethesda IP that they can possibly take advantage of, and waiting for a new Fallout for 10 years is really not taking advantage of it. Obsidian did make Fallout New Vegas, which people absolutely adored, and they've always wanted Obsidian to return to that world, but has never been able to for whatever reasons. But now, because Obsidian and Bethesda are owned by Microsoft, that possibility exists, and it does look like we will see a game from them in the Fallout universe sometime in the future. Whether that's 2028 or 2030, I think we'll see a Fallout game by Obsidian before we will see the next mainline Fallout game from Bethesda. Alright, so now we're going to transition to talk about everybody's favorite topic, Xbox versus PlayStation, the CMA, everything that's going on there. And Microsoft had put out a huge response, some 36 pages. I forget how many pages it actually was, where they basically go and torpedo every single one of the CMA's assertions in their Phase 1 review. They use pretty aggressive language to basically say to the CMA, you didn't come to the right conclusions, you're listening too much to Sony, yada, yada, yada. I didn't want to go over that whole document because, quite frankly, it's the same information we've been talking about for weeks, and at this point, I'm getting kind of fed up with the whole stuff. But there was, I guess you could say, new information regarding Call of Duty and Game Pass, because it kind of came out before that Sony was paying to block certain games from coming into Game Pass, and if you don't want Game Pass to grow, one of the things you can do is prevent games from going into that service, and that is exactly what Sony seems to be doing, and it looks like they're doing it with Call of Duty. So the article goes on to say, in it, a footnote references a tweet from Phil Spencer alluding to, quote, prior agreements between Activision and Sony, which would prohibit Microsoft from adding Call of Duty to Game Pass, even in the event of the acquisition being approved. Quote, the agreement between Activision Blizzard and Sony includes restrictions on the ability of Activision Blizzard to place Call of Duty titles on Game Pass for a number of years, the footnote reads. It's been speculated that should the acquisition be finalized, Call of Duty, which is often the highest selling game of the year across all consoles, would appear on Microsoft's subscription service, thus severely undercutting Sony, where the game would be sold for full price. I mean, that's just the market reality. Sony doesn't want Game Pass on their platform, so they'll be able to sell the game at full price, but Microsoft put it on Game Pass for essentially free. Those are just the breaks, man. I don't know what else to really say about that. I don't know if it'd be severely undercutting Sony. They'll be perfectly fine. It's more that Microsoft is going to increase the value of Game Pass, and anybody that still wants to buy Call of Duty on PlayStation can do so. However, it now appears that even should the merger happen, this couldn't happen for some time. Sony and Activision entered into a co-marketing deal for the mega franchise during the PS4 generation, a relationship it has maintained until now, even with this year's Call of Duty title receiving PlayStation exclusive perks. Yeah, we all know what Sony said about Microsoft's offer regarding Call of Duty for 3 years was inadequate at any level, and we've talked about it at length about how Sony's response to the exclusive stuff is about as hypocritical as you can get. They don't want Microsoft to have exclusive content or make the Xbox version better or put it into Game Pass. even though they currently engage in some of those things like exclusive content right now. And maybe you could say Microsoft's argument get a little bit stronger this week as Konami finally revealed the often rumored remake of Silent Hill 2, which just happens to be a 12-month PlayStation 5 exclusive. So does that help Microsoft's argument to the CMA about Sony and their hypocrisy regarding exclusivity deals and stuff like that? I don't know, because the CMA seems to be doing whatever the CMA want. We're talking specifically about Call of Duty here, because some people thought that if the deal had went through, they'd be able to put Call of Duty games on Game Pass immediately. I always said they wouldn't be able to, because I think Sony was smart enough to say, you know what, in this marketing agreement, we're going to have it so that Call of Duty can't be on Xbox Game Pass for X amount of time. We just saw it with Deathloop, where Deathloop was exclusive for a year, and when it finally came to Xbox, and they were able to put it into Game Pass, they also had to put it into PlayStation Plus. So now the talk is, okay, if the acquisition goes through, when is the first time you'll be able to put the Call of Duty games on Game Pass? They'll probably be able to put a lot of the older games on the Game Pass, but maybe any of the newer ones like Vanguard or Black Ops Cold War, Modern Warfare 2 might have to wait until the marketing deal ends, because I really don't see it extending past the marketing agreement. So stuff like Vanguard, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops Cold War, even if Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard tomorrow, they probably couldn't show up into Xbox Game Pass until Sony's marketing deal ends, which is the end of 2024. So maybe sometime in 2025, you could see the newer Call of Duties enter Xbox Game Pass, and finally, whatever game is after the Treyarch one in 2024 could appear day one on Xbox Game Pass. But it does seem like Sony was a little bit crafty. They're like, we're giving you millions and millions of dollars here. We don't want this to show up on Xbox Game Pass, so we're going to put it in the marketing clause, and it does take two to tango. Right? Activision Blizzard did sign it, so they agreed with whatever Sony was saying in these documents. But it's just another example of how Sony is worried about Game Pass and how they don't want Microsoft to control Call of Duty. They don't want them to be able to put it into Game Pass for free while sell it on PlayStation for $70. They don't want Xbox Game Pass to grow and get more users and become more powerful, because it really does affect their bottom line. And if subscription services become even bigger, then Sony's gonna have to pour more investment into their own subscription service to make PlayStation Plus even better to compete. And they could do that by putting their own first-party titles on there, like God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West, and everything else coming like Spider-Man 2 day and date, but they don't want to. They want to be able to sell it to you, and then maybe a year later sell it to you on PC again, and then put it into their subscription service. They don't want to do it day and date, and if Game Pass got to the point where it was just too big to ignore, they would probably have to change their business model, and maybe they're not ready for it, so they're going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that this deal is blocked. I think that's what Jim Ryan's hoping for, and well, and maybe he's going to get exactly what he wanted, because who knows with this deal. I still think it goes through, but who am I? I ain't no mergers and acquisition lawyer. Anyways, guys, that's the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, check out the Patreon in the description, share this out on social media, and please hit that notification bell. Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Later, guys.